button here. Yes. So, hello, everyone. People are still coming. But welcome to another broader workshop. Today, I hope we will have a very useful session to learn more about the tricks and also processes of applying for jobs in academic environments. Before we begin, I would like to briefly mention what Broader is, and then I will introduce our speakers to you. So Broader project is an EC-funded twinning project. It includes 3 partner institutions. One is Koç University, the other is University of Amsterdam, and Pompeu Fabra University in Barcelona. And this broader project aims to bridge urban and migration studies, but not limited to the specific research area. And it goes further with capacity building of partner universities, partner institutions. That is why, besides the research work conducted under this project, we organize summer and winter schools, seminar series, workshops like this, and also webinars under the broader. The project is ongoing for the last 2 years, and it still has another year to go. So if you are interested, please follow our social media accounts and check out our website for other events. We will have further events on the broader project, and I will put the links in the chat box below if you're interested. You can look at that.
Ma non posso davvero registrare tutto lo schermo?
So to continue with our workshop today, I would like to introduce our speakers to you. Peter Scholten is a full professor in the governance of migration and diversity at Erasmus University, Rotterdam. He is specialized in urban governance, multi-level governance, complexity governance, global migration, migrant inclusion, and the relationship between science and politics on migration. He has published vastly, including his work on cities of migration and on a complexity perspective on migration governance. And Professor Scholten is lead of the team Policy, Politics and Society at Erasmus University and former coordinator of the European University of Post-Industrial Cities, UNIC, and director of the Leiden-Delft Erasmus Research Center on the governance of migration and diversity. Also, he is editor-in-chief of the journal Comparative Migration Studies and associate editor of the Journal of Comparative Policy Analysis. We are happy to have Peter Scholten here today with us. And the second speaker and also our moderator today is Ahmet İçduygu, who is a full professor at Koç University. One is actually in the Department of International Relations, and the other is in the Department of Sociology. He is also the coordinator of the broader project and also the director of the Migration Research Center at Koç University. He was the former dean of the College of Social Sciences and Humanities at Koç University, Istanbul. He holds a PhD in demography from the Australian National University, and he had visiting professor and fellow positions at many universities like Stockholm University, the University of Warwick, the University of Manchester, the European University Institute in Florence, the University of Pennsylvania, Malmö University, and the University of Amsterdam. So he's an elected member of Science Academy also in Turkey, and he's the editor-in-chief of the well-established scholarly journal, International Migration. In addition to his own individual research projects, Professor İçduygu has conducted various research projects for the international organizations such as IOM, EU, OECD, and so forth. He teaches on migration studies, theories and practice of citizenship, international organizations, civil society, nationalism, and ethnicity, and research methods. And finally, Gökçe Sanıl is our third speaker for today. She is a cultural geographer specializing in urban studies with a doctoral degree in human geography from Vrije University, Brussels. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Completed in 2019. And she's currently a Marie Curie postdoctoral research fellow in the sociology department at the University of Amsterdam. So drawing on the disciplines of human geography, urban sociology, and cultural studies, she explores transformations in urban spaces and cultures. Recently, she has focused on the growing trend of creative urbanites migrating from urban to non-urban areas, investigating new specialities and lifestyles these communities create. She specifically examines how they connect urban, rural, and digital spaces. Her research also aims to develop tools for assessing the cultural impact of the creative ex-urban communities on rural areas. So she's also saying that she's eager to produce outcomes that extend beyond academia and support more inclusive cities. And she has been active in providing research and consultancy support to municipalities and civil society organizations over the last 12 years on projects related to local cultural policies and cultural planning. So I would like to thank all of our speakers to be with us today. And now I will leave the floor to Professor İçduygu, as I said, who will not only talk about applying for jobs in academia as a speaker, but also moderate this workshop session. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Ceren. Good afternoon to everyone. As Ceren mentioned, that I have two roles here. One, I will be the moderator of the session, and secondly, also I will try to contribute with my views and my observation considering the job search in academia. In fact, we have two other colleagues here, Peter and Gökçe. So three of us will be covering this interesting topic for us. So also I like to express my thanks to Gökçe and Peter for their contribution. As the theme of this workshop focus on the applying for jobs in academia, I think we can approach from two sides. One side is that from the institutional side, how the institutions, the academic institutions, mostly we will refer to probably to universities, how they are hiring the academicians. This is one aspect of the issue. The second one, of course, for the particularly young scholars, researchers, academicians, how they apply for the different positions in academia. So that actually we have here, we are talking about a kind of job market issue here. And there are two actors, the institutions and the individual scholars. And these two of these actors in this market, they are trying to have a good fit. So end of the story, actually, what will be the good fit for the academicians to find a job, also for the institutions, how they hire the best scholars into their institutions. So here there's a kind of supply and demand issue. Possibly first we have to focus on the question of how we understand the job market in academia, because of course in other areas also there are job markets, but academia it has own characteristics and the quite complex one. It has its own dynamics and mechanisms, and also of course it changes from one institution to another or from one geography to another, and over time also this job market is very dynamic. And probably in our talks, I mean, we will mention, for instance, I mean, just when I first was in market in the early 1990s, the situation was quite different from the now. So this over time, how this market change also, we will focus on that in our talks. In this context, actually, first, I like to give the floor to Gökçe because she's the relatively new PhD, and now she has a postdoc position. So she was in the market, and probably she will tell us her insights into job market, her experiences, and then I like to move to Peter, actually, particularly with the question of how the institutions trying to hire the academicians. Then we will go on maybe on certain specific issues. Without further ado, Gökçe, I mean, if I like to come to the floor. Thank you.
Yes, I will share my presentation first. Yes, I hope you can see, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Today I will talk specifically about my experiences with applying Marie Curie Fellowship. So it will be, a bit focus on this, but later on with the discussion also I can share broader experiences as well. I will start with an overview of the evaluation criteria for the people who consider applying later. I would like to first of all talk about evaluation criteria, and then I would like to talk about my failed proposal, because I got this fellowship at the end of my third attempt, and it underlines experiences as a accumulation of an experiences for applying to this specific fellowship. And I will share my revision tactics. At the end, I will also share insights on this successful proposal, and finally, I will share my suggestions. Okay, let me start with the evaluation criteria. As you can see, the evaluation is based on 3 different criteria based on excellence, which consists the highest percentage, 50%, and 30% impact, 20% the evaluation of implementation part. And here I want to take my time to talk about this criteria in a more specific way, because they are important. In the excellence part that consists of the highest percentage, we see in total 4 different sections. First one is about research and innovation objectives. So in that part, they want to see in a very clear, measurable, and achievable way our objectives, the objectives of our proposal. And the second is about the literature review, but how our project will go beyond current knowledge and practices by demonstrating its innovative aspects. The second one is the methodology part. Here, besides asking the main methodological approach consisting of models and also identifying challenges, strategies to overcome, they also want to see the interdisciplinary aspect of the proposal, as well as gender and diversity, and also how it relates with open science practices and the research data management. When I was applying in 2022, these AI considerations were not there, but when I checked the new template, I see that they also added AI considerations. If it's applicable for your project, you should mention them. The third one is about supervision and training. Here, we should explain the highlight supervisor's expertise, track record in international collaborations, experience in supervising PhD and postdoctoral researchers, training activities that we will pursue in the host institution, and the knowledge transfer. So it means that how our knowledge will be transferred to the host institution, and that we will have new skills and knowledge from the host institution. So this transfer they want to see. And if it's the case that you will take some time for your research purposes in a non-academic institution, also you should justify why it's relevant for your research. And the third and last section is about researchers' professional experience. Here we should talk about our experiences, expertise, and how these skills align with our research proposal, and how our background supports the goals and objectives and the methods of our project. What I would like to emphasize in this part, when we talk about the excellence part, it's not only about providing a research statement with some clear objectives and a strong methodology, but they also want to see the qualification of supervision and training, as well as our own experiences. So these 4 different parts constitute the excellence part. Yes, the second evaluation criteria, which is on impact. So as you can see, it consists of 3 different subsections: career development and skills enhancement, dissemination, exploitation, and communication, expected scientific, societal, and economic impacts. Here, what we see regarding the career perspectives and employability, they want to see specific measures that will enable us to improve our career opportunities. And it's important that we show how the skills that we will acquire during this project will contribute to our future career. The second one, dissemination, exploitation, and communication, which is also an important criteria. They want to see here our strategies to share and utilize project results. So we should clearly identify the target groups, the scientific community, the end users, public. And here it's important to define key messages, tools, channels to inform and engage society, emphasizing project benefits for citizens. And if applicable, IP management, intellectual property aspects should be clarified as well. And the third one, they want to see the scientific impact, economic impact, and societal impact. And also, they want from us to provide specific, credible outcomes. So this should be quantified, actually. Size of affected groups, as an example, can be given here. And the third one, so I will also talk when I will share my experiences, because impact was one of the challenging parts of the proposal writing. The third one, work plan and risk management. Here they want to see the structure of our work plan, in which we clearly define our deliverables, which means key outputs, and the milestones, which mean important checkpoints. They also want that we include a detailed timeline here that show our work packages, deliverables, milestones, if it's the case, secondments, and also with indicating months. The third one, risk management. The mechanism to identify, assess, mitigate research or administrative skills. And the second subsection of this implementation part is about host institutions and arrangements, but from a more technical aspect. Here, we should explain how the researcher will be integrated into the research team and institution by highlighting also support services and institutional capacity should be mentioned here as well by discussing the infrastructure, logistics, facilities available at host and partner organizations. And further details can be, it's another part can be outlined in the part B, I say. After giving this broad overview about the evaluation criteria and the content, now I will share my own experiences. So I started writing this proposal in 2020 when I granted with a grant writing fellowship in the University of Amsterdam for 3 months. And first proposal, I will also share my abstract with you. But first, let me tell you my title, Futures of Urbanity and Rurality, a comparative study on sustainability-driven and hybrid work-life forms of ex-urban millennials. So my focus was on, has always been on this intriguing migration trend of urban people from urban areas to non-urban rural areas. And I was focusing on this group of people who are also known as digital natives. And I was interested in understanding how they create new work and life forms by connecting rural, urban, and digital spaces. But in my very first proposal, I proposed to conduct a comparative study between Turkey and Netherlands. And how I formulated, I said that I aim to improve the transferability of empirical insights across different local settings and to build theoretically informed knowledge, overcoming the bias of existing research on Northern and Western context. Accordingly, I aim to reconceptualize hybrid forms of work life through new social spatial connections that extend rural urban to urban virtual axis. This new theoretical insight will generate understanding about the potential of these new work-life forms to reshape urbanity and rurality, and thus will be the key step for designing long-term practical implementations. And my work packages, the first one delineates extra-urban millennials, second one outlines public images of sustainability, extra-urban millennials create on digital platforms, third one reveals new hybrid social spatial work-life forms, and fourth one compares findings from Turkey to those from Netherlands. So this first proposal, my score was 78%, 78.40%, with the excellence. It was the lowest one, 3.20, and the impact was 4.40, whereas the implementation was 5. So I got full points from it. And I decided to renew it, to apply once again, because I had also clearly some strengths, and I think that I can build on it. So let me share the strengths, because I think it's also important to share this evaluation reports, how they evaluate. The state of art, the literature review, so the way that I will move beyond the existing literature, it was among the strengths, and the research methodology, innovative aspect, interdisciplinary aspects, the host institution, and the transfer of knowledge from the researcher to the host institution, the qualifications of the supervisor, the quality of the environment, and the way that I will be, as a researcher, I will be integrated to the appropriate environment, and the potentials of the researcher. So these were the strong parts. But what about the weaknesses? So here, as you can see, they commented on the objectives. So specific objectives of the proposal are not sufficiently developed. They describe more on the actions. So, and specifically, they wrote the verbs that I use: delineating, mapping, analyzing, then focusing on the goals to be achieved. There is a limited development on the meaning and content of sustainable agendas in terms of research and policy. The researcher mentions that the data on gender will be collected and that the respondents will be chosen with consideration for gender equality, but the explanation on how gender aspects will be addressed is very short. The publication track record of the co-supervisor is not presented with sufficient detail. The spectrum of measures to integrate the researcher into different areas of expertise, disciplines, and networking opportunities offered by the host is not addressed with a sufficient level of detail. So in the beginning, while I was talking about the scope of this excellence part, so as you can see, all the points that I lose, they were not about the state of art or the method, but also the very specific aspects about it. So how I shaped the objectives, how clear they were. And also the co-supervisor's track record. So these are all they seem like the details, but they're also quite important aspects. Then how I addressed these weaknesses in my second proposal. First of all, I refined the objectives. I used more specific, measurable, and I defined more specific, measurable, and achievable objectives by using the appropriate words and verbs. I enhanced the methodology, in integrating more detail about this gender dimension, I also improved the part that I explain open science practices, and I aligned more with the policy agendas about sustainability. I should also mention here that after my PhD research, where I was investigating about cultural organizations and like the ways that they open up new spaces, new public spaces. In this postdoctoral project, I would like to change the focus a bit and turn my way towards these debates on sustainability. So it's an important part of my journey, and you will understand soon why. So in the second proposal, the title became Towards Sustainable Urban Rural Futures, a comparative study on hybrid work-life forms of ex-urban millennials, and my score increased to 84.40%, with a remarkable increase in this excellence part after the change that I made. But what happened? So this time the impact decreases to 3.60, and also implementation decreases. Although it was disappointing, I knew that each year, different reviewers check the proposals. So as it's the case, it's normal that they have different opinions on the very similar proposals. And as my supervisor encouraged, and as my score increased, after all, in the second attempt, I decided to apply again, one last time. But yeah, before that, also let me share with you what were the evaluation that I got for this impact assessment. The strong parts. So let me share this. The researcher provides a well-identified and structured list of arguments about the impact of the proposal on their career and skill developments. Planned measures to enhance the career's expected skills development are credible and will be well supported by the supervisor and institutions. Planned dissemination measures for academic audiences are suitable, convincing, diverse, using different channels such as social media, blogs, publication, and conferences. The results are expected to have an impact beyond the immediate scope and duration via the establishment of new interdisciplinary networks. And the weaknesses. The exploitation and communication plans are insufficiently developed. Outreach activities targeting the general public are discussed in rather generic terms, and measures beyond social media and video platforms are not sufficiently considered. Plans to engage policymakers are limited in detail, given that the goal of policy influence is central to the proposed research. Estimates of the proposal's contribution to expected scientific, societal, and economic impacts and outcomes are not well quantified. And I had one weakness from this implementation part. The proposal is modest in discussing a comprehensive list of risks and related contingency plan. So after this evaluation, I decided to do a more radical change in the formation of my proposal. So first of all, I decided to shift my focus from this debates on sustainability to the one focusing on the debates on cultural impact, because it was aligning with my personal expertise since the last 10 years and my established networks. And second, I articulated that among these ex-urban communities, I will focus on in a specific group, the ones who are working in the cultural and creative sectors. And I emphasize that my established contacts for collaboration with NGOs in cultural sectors will be activated for preparing policy reports, and I demonstrated that I'm aware of the current debates in the EU regarding to my proposal, and I will address them. I highlighted my experience in publishing a toolkit in collaboration with a cultural organization, demonstrating my practical environment into those debates. And I have diversified the dissemination and exploitation strategies. So I identified target audiences very clearly and outlined the strategies that that will enable me to reach them. And I also clearly articulated the scientific, societal, and economic impact of this proposal. So this is the last version of my abstract. Let me also read it to you. It starts again with the same.
Gökçe, pardon, I'm sorry, just I don't want to interrupt, but time is running. I mean, what I will suggest that rather than going to the detail of your research project, maybe if you can summarize the things, but maybe you can later, you can share your experiences. I mean, how you decided to go for this project. What's the meaning of this project in terms of finding jobs in academia? So I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but the time is running. Rather than the detail of the project, maybe you should share I mean, I really appreciate what you are saying, actually. You are not discouraged, for instance. We can get these lessons from your experience. I mean, although this maybe the first important thing is that we should not afraid of the failing because you have the attempt 3 times. So you understand what we mean. If you can sum up with the rest of the slides, then we can go to the other discussions.
Okay. Yes. So let's sum up then what I want to say actually at the end. So the last slides, they were mostly about the final phase of the project. And I want to articulate to give this clear objectives with the clear work packages here. So let's skip the slides. That also, I mean, for example, in the 3rd and 4th work packages, because in the formulation of this last version of the proposal, I specifically show that, okay, so the first objective that will be about mostly the theoretical development of the project, and the other ones, the second objective, that will produce outcome, practical outcome that can also be used by the local authorities. And after that, this impact part became stronger. That enabled me to also get this fellowship, I think. And at the end, I would like to share the specific suggestions. Let me come to the slides. Yes. Okay, my suggestions, I mean, while applying to the Marie Curie Fellowship, it can be, but it can also be in a broader sense. I think it's important to read some successful proposals. So I had the chance to read successful proposals while preparing my proposal, and the selection of the university and the supervisor is quite important, I think. And what I experienced, I formed this proposal during a visiting writing fellowship case. And it's also important to build some relations before starting preparing a proposal and be integrated with this research center, aligning your goals with their goals. So find a university where you already have contacts, and if you have the chance, go as a visiting researcher to understand the structure and establish networks. It's also important that this university have expertise and knowledge with EU Horizon projects. In my case, UVA had this experience, and I got assistance from the R&D department. Also, yes, the supervisor selection is important as well, as I mentioned. And again, contact with experts who can read your proposals. Not only for sure the supervisor and the colleagues, they can give very important feedback, but also the feedback from R&D staff. And also what I did, I contacted with the national contact point here in Netherlands, and they also give me quite useful feedback. Second one, relate your topics with this open science, gender dimension, and interdisciplinary aspects. They are quite important. And engaging with key debates in EU for specifically, Marie Curie applications is quite important to show that you know about these debates and you can collaborate with some key actors that can help you to realize your practical outcomes. Also, write about the subject where you have specialized so far, build your expertise, experience, and establish networks. And it's also important to be quite specific, as I just mentioned, how many publications you expect at the end of this fellowship, where you want to publish them, and which actors you will collaborate. So they check this kind of specific aspects in this proposal. Okay, so it will be all about the Marie Curie Fellowship application experience. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Gökçe, thank you very much. I mean, we will have the second round probably. I mean, to get also your experience probably during that process, you were looking for other jobs, etc. But what I like to do, just because Gökçe talks about something very specific, which is the Marie Curie Fellowship application. But from these specific examples, we can draw some lessons in the general context of the applying for jobs or searching for a position. Just I like to stress the few points as the lessons actually indirectly I got from the Gökçe's talk. One is that I think because we have to, for instance, Gökçe mentioned that the other side has the expectations. Okay, those institutions, they have the expectations. This was a funding agency. So really, while we are searching the job, expectation of the other side, we should really have the good reading of what they are expecting from us. Because in the job positions, actually, with the wording, they really somehow explain their expectations. Often in these expectations, so they like to see our high academic performance or what we did earlier. In that sense, for instance, publication record is important. Actually, what we did, our experiences. Then second lessons I can draw from that, for each applications, we have to tailor our applications. In fact, Gökçe's experiences shows that she had the 2 times a kind of failure, but the third time she was not discouraged by this. Okay, this is another thing is that often in academia, in every jobs, actually, this is very competitive area. We could be discouraged, but we should not give up. But also, this shows that getting feedback from our just job searching experiences, we should tailor our applications. So because we get some lessons that Gökçe did very well, actually, then she got this funding. Also, the other point, in Gökçe's talk, for instance, one of the criticism was on it being a kind of interdisciplinary. Now, I like to stress that increasingly, what I said in my introductory note is that in fact, academic market is changing over time. For instance, when I graduated 30 years ago, the interdisciplinary work as not as was important now we are talking about. And we should not forget that there are different traditions from different disciplines. Some of the institutions, some of the departments, really disciplinary background is very important. But particularly since we are talking about the migration studies, urban studies, etc., increasingly, but this is not just limited to our area, increasingly departments or institutions gives importance to the being interdisciplinary. So in fact, this is another aspect that probably we should discuss. There are, disciplinary background is very important, but also a kind of opening to the interdisciplinary approach also important while we are searching jobs. These were some of the intakes actually I can draw as lessons from the talk. Now I like to give the floor to Peter, particularly he has the experience, for the hiring, if he doesn't mind that, of course, hiring part also important, what the institutions thinks when they are trying to academic recruitment. So Peter, would you like to come to the floor just to share your experiences or your ideas about this job market in academia? Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Ahmed, and also thank you very much, Gotje, also for sharing your experiences. It's I think incredibly insightful to see from your side how you go through such a process and how strong and resilient you have been and have to be as a person to go through it. I think that's very important. It's if you I don't think we talk about this enough in academia. That most of the time we are dealing with deceptions and perceived failure and things that do not work. Whereas the outside world will only look at us for the moment that our articles are published, and that our proposals are accepted, and that we are the keynote at a conference, for instance. And I think this big world behind that, where you keep persevering, is very important, and that you show that. And I really appreciated that. I think that's perhaps the most important message of today, also to everyone. If you look at this very complicated academic labor market, this is not so straightforward as when you are applying for a ministry somewhere. The pipeline is thin. It's very sometimes precarious, but it's let's say it's more ambiguous than in many other sectors. So it's not as if you fail in one case, in one institution, in one grant. That means that you'll fail in other institutions also. It's really very complex. I'll come to that in a minute. And also sharing some of Ahmed's observations. If you look at this labor market, it's full of opportunities, but you need to find them, and they are very diverse, and they often come with very different requirements that you need to fine-tune to. So I don't want to sound like an old man, but in my old time, becoming an academic was more. There was a clearer and more singular entry route into academia. So then you can say, well, that's at least clear what you need to do and where you need to ring the bell in order to get an answer. But now also you have more options than in the past. In the past, it was really just counting, do you already have a publication? Is there a professor who thinks that you can publish? And if that's the case, then yeah, you may make it in. And if that's not the case, there's no way that you would make it into academia. So now it's more diverse. So it is also more, you have more options than back in the old days. But it also means that you need to be, whereas I could be very singular focused, what do I need to do to get there? You need to have constantly this 360 view around you and look for the different options. And I think now, if I look at my own people who are in my institute, then it's often those people who have really looked at the various options how to make it into academia. The old route, where it's just publications or it's only a big grant that brings you into a university. That's no longer the case. And I think that will continue. So the importance of central grants will continue to decrease. Whether it's national science grants, Europe ERC grants, they are becoming less important, and that will continue. So that will require much more of your creativity in how to make it into academia. But that is a sort of an introduction, a link to make to my presentation. Let me put on my slides. I think now it's showing. So this is one of the first points that I wanted to make, and while doing that, also explaining what I tap into when talking to you. Is this very complex setting of the contemporary academic labor market. This is really what is so important for you, more important even in the future, and certainly more important than it was in my time. And these are some cases where I had some experience being a reviewer for EFC proposals, reviewer for Horizon, a big collaborative grant, the Marie Curie scheme, which is also, I think, a very important channel into academia. But also, working at my university, Erasmus University, Rotterdam, leading my research center there, has given me quite some insight in the other side. So when and under what conditions do you want to hire someone? And actually, the longer I'm in the business of selecting people, the more the less straightforward it comes for me, the more challenging sometimes. So it's not that, after doing this for 15 years, now I can immediately pick the person that's no, it's more that I need to look at so many different things, that I've learned to look at so many different things, that it gets more difficult. And that it happens quite often that I select someone that if you would just look at first round CV and check, the first round is always we just look at the CVs, and then out of those CVs 10% make it to the second round, almost 10% where you talk with people. I don't think that the relationship between, so let's say, the ranking after the first round of CVs is very close anymore to what you'll see in the second or third rounds. The gap has become wider, which means that how you sell yourself, how you present yourself, and the diversity of skills that you show has become far more important than just what you put into the CV. So that's what I know from Erasmus University. I've been working in IMISCO also for many years. So there I see also this international, that's not so much a labor market, but that's something that happens before that. Network formations, connections, what topics are relevant, what do we want to do research on, and if we want to do that, who do we need to have? So it's a sort of the primeval soup that you need to be in before when projects are landed, you can get into those projects. Usually it goes super fast. And when land the money of a big project, the period towards selecting a person and starting is usually very short. So if you are not already somewhere in the loop connected or known, then it can be complicated sometimes. And I put here Open Society Foundation. I'm not sure whether it's the best example to choose because it's a foundation not always perfect in my opinion, but also one that has backed off a little bit from migration. But just to show that this foundation market is also important. So if you're really looking at only one channel, then I have to be a little bit bold here, then you're doing something wrong. So if you really want to be in academia and you have one grant scheme that you focus on, then that's not enough. Then perhaps you don't want it badly enough. You need to diversify your tactics. Yes, you can be amongst the lucky ones that you make it through the lucky. That's not just luck, that's quality, excellence. You're very good in that. But that pipeline is very thin. So I really recommend you to diversify your labor market access perspectives if you want to become an academic, because there are many routes. I'll say more about that in a minute. This is another changing factor, and this is really a glance towards the future. And it's in that sense, you have two speakers from Dutch universities here, and Dutch universities have signed the charters of team science already. So we have a different system now of recognizing academic achievement, where we don't look at publications only anymore. So we are not even allowed to count your number of publications, look at rankings, look at impact factors. It's not allowed. If I do it, I get fined by my own university if I do it like that. So all Dutch universities have signed up to this. In the UK, most universities are in this. At the EU level, the European Higher Education Area, so connected to the European Research Council, is also gradually adopting this. So I expect that very soon the idea of team science will lead that if you apply for an ERC, you can't really provide a clear overview of all your publications anymore. And you need to provide a narrative of what's important and why is it important, and just choose 5. And then we look at that as at this moment, that's still the case, but I think it's very unlikely to continue, because what team science means is that science is no longer something that you do individually. So it's no longer something that depends on what you have acquired in funds, what you have published, what your training has been, and how good you are. It's more about what do you add to the team in which you are working. What do you add to the potential of research acquisition if you match with others in a team? What do you add in terms of publication power if you work together with others? And there's a lot of research about this, that if once team science really takes off, the number of publications even increase, your number of publications, because you collaborate very efficiently with others. I take some time to explain this because this is going to be super important, and it is already. I think if you go to the Netherlands, UK, Germany, Sweden, and you apply to those universities, this is one of the primary selection rationales. It's not just what is your CV, it's do you fit in? And are you a team worker? And if you then come to a talk and say, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do so, it's very unlikely you get in. So it's very important that you then orient, what is the team that you are working with? Perhaps you're a methodological brain, and then you say, I add this methods to this group where you have those topics. This is very important. Or perhaps you bring in a region across the globe that is not there, and then you say, you do great research on refugee integration, but you miss the entire Asian area. That's what I can bring in, and that's why I work together. Or you say, you are very good in publishing, but your societal impact as a center, that's where I can help and team up with your research group. But this is really my strong recommendation. So if you want to make it into universities, American university, I forget by the way, but team science comes from the US and comes from other disciplines originally. Like in natural sciences, technological sciences, there you need to collaborate because you need to share equipment. Projects are very big, and one person can never make a difference. And as always, social sciences are relatively late. We were also late with open access, late with grant schemes. We are late with team science, but I don't have a glass ball, can't look into the future, but I think it's inevitable that this will be your future, will be team science. So don't despair. That's a little bit a message that I think Gotcha brought far better than I can do. Seeing the resilience of Gotcha, there are so many options, but there's also so much confusion, so much different things you can do in academia, and it's so precarious. So projects are launched, and then 1 out of 100 gets selected. Grant schemes very selective. Teaching jobs are very selective. So it's important to persevere and then think of what can you add, what are your strengths in plural, and then pursue those strategy options and make sure you are not stuck in only one opportunity channel. Try to diversify that soon. And then if you get rejected once, well, I've been rejected many, many, many times in my life, I can tell you, and I'm still here. I'm still going strong, I hope. This is really you're a human being, so then what I always do when I get rejected somewhere, an article gets rejected or a project is not accepted. Well, articles, yeah, but for projects, that's a big thing. And you put in a lot of money, a lot of time. Then I allow myself to sleep bad one night. And then it has to be over and done with. And then I look at, well, what am I going to do? And what am I going to do when? That's very important. So then go a little bit more towards concrete things, and what can you then do? And just experiences that I would like to share, things that when I was in those committees, when I am in those committees, what convinces me, and what can be suggestions to you. So first a little bit, what do you need to do for the labor market? And then my last slide will be more some instrumental, suggestions on an instrumental level, what to do. So orienting yourself in the academic labor market. One is to really build a clear personal profile. Who are you? What are your strengths? What do you add to a team if you are applying somewhere? Don't do too much, and also not too little. If the only thing that you can do is write articles on a mini topic in a mini region with a mini methodology, then you're very vulnerable. And you need to show why you're doing that, why that's important, what you want to develop, what you find interesting, and build your profile, your person branding. So don't be too modest. Tell who you are, why you are there. You're all young scholars when you're applying. So nobody expects you to be director of so and so. No, but be clear in terms of person branding. There are all trainings organized around that. How do you brand yourself as a person? Define your niche. So what do you stand for? Again, don't make that too specific, but also not too generic. People want to know what you're doing, and why you are doing that, why you find that important, and what that adds then. I'll come back to that later. What that adds then to the team that you are applying to. You want to get from a letter, you want a clear idea of, okay, this is what this person stands for. I often recommend also to not just make a bullet point CV, but add narratives there, stories about yourself. Write a good story about yourself. Important, build your network. So be connected. And this is not this is not about old boys networking. This is not like in the old days where that was indeed the case, that you need to be on the radar of specific professors in order that when they have something that they know how to find you. But what is very important now is that you have oversight, connections to the people that are working in the area that you find very interesting, so that you connect with them when they are writing proposals for Horizon, for big IOM schemes, for National Science Foundation schemes, AMIF schemes, for instance, and that you connect with them, that you hook up with others. This is one thing that I did in my early career a lot. I connected with people all over Europe, and we tried often, and we failed often, and every now and then we won. And on those projects, successful projects, we built a whole network of European scholars that are still working together today. So it's important not to stay put in your office only. Get out of your office, connect with others. Strength of weak ties also. Not always go to the usual suspects. If there are very interesting experts for you somewhere in the world, reach out to them. And I get also a lot of requests, and to be very honest, I don't respond to all of them. But if there's something in there, somebody who really connects with what I'm working on, I will connect back. I think that applies for many scholars working in our area. When you read a letter over mail about somebody who's really interested in a topic that you're also really interested in, then you do hook up. And this is important when you are working also towards an ERC or Marie Curie, for instance, that you then show that you have those connections. The strength of weak ties, as sociologists call that. That's how you develop your network. And the last thing, I already said that, prepare for team science. So try to develop yourself richly. I think Gosje also said that at some point you diversified your profile in your application. That's very good. That's what you need to do. Show that you can also do research, that you can also do teaching, that you also do impact, perhaps that you write letters to newspapers that get published, that you have a good societal network, that you work with community researchers, that you are a person that can collaborate. That's very important. I see nowadays sometimes that people who apply for professorships and come from a solo science tradition are rejected. And if you look at their CVs, then you think, wow, great. But modern universities see a solo person, and modern universities look for team persons. And those team persons nowadays make it to professorships. So it's also at that level. It's also for the next steps in your career. This continues being important, more than ever in the past. Yeah, then some instrumental tips. So I read the list of questions to me, so I really wanted to make sure I address all the questions. Yeah, one is CVs. So how do you build your CVs? Here's very important. Don't focus on the quantity. Just focus on quality. Don't try to show that you have as many papers or workshops or work as possible, because I mean everybody knows that if you have a conference paper somewhere or a publication in a good journal or something in a leading newspaper, these things they weigh very differently. So nobody looks at a list of 100 publications in a way that's really 100 publications. That's no longer really impressive. And what is impressive if you have something that you are very proud of, and then tell in your narrative, in your CV, why are you proud of that? And sometimes has a big impression on me. Then I read that and then I think, okay, this article is not just an article in a journal. This is a new research agenda. This is a new tone. This is something new. This is something that I want, that I need in my team, that I miss. Your story tells more than just the bullet points. Yeah, provide a narrative. I already said that. I think 50% of your CV can be a narrative. Really 50%. So don't build it in the old-fashioned way, because you risk it being ignored. You just quickly glance to it. References are relevant. It's very important. I've never hired anybody without calling the reference persons, somebody who can stand in for you. I've always talked with those people before hiring someone, and it really can make a big difference. And you can ask questions that otherwise you can never ask. So think carefully also of who you put there. It's important. Yeah, and show what you can do. So not only think about your publications and research, but other stuff also. So have you been working with media? Have you had any impact with your research? And do you have any proof of that? Or can you tell about that in an exciting way? So in an old perception, science was really separate from society. But that's no longer the case for almost all schemes that we get funding from. It's always about science with and for and in society and all that type of stuff. So universities are also looking for people who can do that. Universities are no longer looking for people who just, can hide in the books and the methods. That's unlikely. So that's for your CV. Make it a rich narrative CV. Then for grants, also here, don't focus on quantity, but on quality. So it's an easy mistake to make, and that's for guaranteed one that I did in some stages of my career. Then you try to apply for as much as possible with many people, and you're all over the place, and you write that stuff, and almost every month, an application goes out. That's not a good strategy, because what then happens is that the quality decreases, and you don't need 10 projects, you need one. And if you go for that 10, you may submit 10 proposals at 60-70% of quality, whereas the competition is so high that anything under 90% will not even be looked at in terms of real review procedure. So you want to be in that top 10%. So if you go for an application, go deep. And if you feel that you can't go deep as Gotcha went for your grant, If you feel that you can't go that deep, then don't go there at all, because it leads to a lot of disappointment. Then you waste a lot of time for yourself primarily. You want your time. Your time is very valuable. So spend it wisely. And when you go for something, then it's all in. And then you can win. Then you can achieve something. And then when you have a grant, then use it to the maximum. So use it also to brand your profile. Use it to build your network. Use it to have impact. So don't then, if you have the money, you think, oh, now I'm going to hide in my office. I'm going to do some regression analysis, publish in a journal, and then that's it. Because yeah, you can do that. But in terms of career building, it's very unwise. So once you have it, you want everybody to know it. And you want to see it as an opportunity beyond the deliverables of your project. Last part, so what do you do then in job interviews, which is very hard. I to be honest, I haven't had a lot of them myself. I did a lot of interviews with people, but I didn't do a lot of them myself. So perhaps I'm not even the best judge on this, to be very honest. But being on the other side, what I always like is, be calm, be prepared. We're all nervous. Even committee members can be nervous. It's an important decision. That's okay. Be prepared. Make sure that no committee member can catch you on anything that you say, oh yeah, I didn't notice that or didn't see that in the job description or in background information of the institute that you are applying to. Make sure that you come well prepared, feel at ease then, and make a conversation. So this is it is a talk. They want to get to know you, and you want to get to know them. That is really how I see it. We often try to get rid of hierarchy in the first questions, make a joke, level the playing field in the talk, and then try to see who you are. And sometimes ask stupid questions like, what do we need to do to make you very angry or to make you very happy? This is really to see what person are you and how do you fit into a team? And are you a collaborative person? Even if you have 100 publications, if you're not a collaborative person, it's unlikely that you're hired. So this is important. Study the committee and the organization that you go to. So you should know everything. If you want to work at Erasmus University or at Amsterdam University or Stockholm University, then that needs to show. So then you need to have your story ready about Stockholm University or Rotterdam or Amsterdam, and you need to know what that organization is and connect to that. Think big, so you're never applying for just a project. You're applying to make a next step in your career. So what I always like of people doing is that if you're realistic about weaknesses, we all have weaknesses. I have many. You probably also have some. That you also phrase that in terms of, yes, now I want to come to Erasmus University because I've learned to do this and that in my academic profile, but I don't know that so much. So I know how to publish, but the teaching not so strong, or strong in publication, but acquisition I've never done that, and I want to learn that. That's very clever. That's always appreciated if people say that. And my final suggestion is really something that I'm personally very sensitive towards, is that you always get the opportunity to ask some questions yourself in a job interview. And to my big surprise, sometimes there are people that say, no, I have no questions. No. And that's for me always a red flag. Then I think, how can that be? You want to spend the rest of the next step of your academic career with us, and you have no questions? That's really funny. I find that's an alarm bell. So come prepared, be interested, and then have questions also to the place that you are coming towards. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, that was it. That in terms of the presentation. So I hope that this presentation helps you understand the diversity of options that you have, and especially you as future generation. You are looking at a much different field of science than even 10, 15 years ago, which will probably be more confusing and sometimes challenging, but also more rich in options if you spot where those options are. And yeah, I hope that you keep standing in it and that you don't despair when you never fail, I would say. You always learn, even if you are rejected somewhere. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. I really appreciate your general insights, also your specific tips you have given to us. Just after your talk, I mean, I have also a few points, not based on your, in general, whole the issue. Some of them actually already mentioned, but I like to summarize as my takeaways. So first thing, actually, particularly in relation to job, applying for jobs and the job searching, I think both Gökçe and Peter mentioned a bit the understanding the landscape of the larger landscape of the academia is very important. I mean, just understanding the larger context of the academic environment. That's important, but also that changes, as my introductory remark, I said that this changes from one place to another and over time. So really specifically where we are living at which location, which university we are applying, that understanding is very important because as we are unfortunately referring to market, so there's a demand coming from other side, actually, from the institutions. They look for certain persons. So based on that, I think based on our personal choices, we should develop the strategy. We are talking about developing certain strategies, again, to fit ourselves to that position. So this is a kind of dilemma for us. And inevitably, so this field is not so, is quite diverse. I mean, diversity, and there's no, I mean, no understanding of one size fits all. That's very important. So in that sense, I like to stress the few points. Publication already reminded to us, but of course, also what Peter said, that, for instance, teamwork now, the whole understanding of teamwork is even sometimes much more important than the publication issues. What did not mention that in fact, particularly if we are searching for position in the universities, teaching is important. I mean, teaching aspect. So on our CVs, of course, as the young scholars coming from the certain disciplines, we should show that look, we are able to teach certain courses. I will have advice on that because often, of course, our research is very specific, coming from the very specific area. Often one can tend to give a kind of course on that specific issue. This shouldn't be only single strategy. For instance, I mean, I was the dean earlier than I'm also, I mean, for a long time in the field. So I have been in different recruitment committees for the departments, particularly in that discipline. While we are searching the kind of new colleagues, we talk about what courses the person can offer to us. And the one could be those specific courses, but in each department, there are some introductory courses or some core courses. So what I will suggest that although you are expert on some specific area, you should think about that while you are preparing your course syllabus. I think you should also focus, you should be able to give a kind of core course or a kind of introductory course too, because the institutions also somehow wants that you should be serving in different areas in that particular department. So I like to stress that too. Also, academia is a kind of social environment. While we are searching a new person, also we think about how that personalities are important. I mean, collaboration, teamwork, etc. So in that sense, we also expect that the new scholar should have a kind of services to the communities. Okay, this means that at the universities there are certain committees, for instance, search committees or curriculum committees, etc. So being in academia does not mean that only you are doing research or teaching, but you have to serve in different committees. Later, maybe you will get some administrative positions, etc. So you should be ready for that too. That's also important. So I'm stressing that of course, research and publication is important. be careful about what is your in your CV about the teaching. And third thing is that you have to give the signal about what will be your services to that institution. Even we use the concept of for instance, in my university, each year we are evaluated by these three measures. One is the publication and research, second is teaching, and third is the services to the university. And then in that sense, often we say, I mean, I was the dean and I use this concept of the person is a good citizen, okay? Good citizen for the institution. So that's also important. At least you have to give that impression and not only impression, but you should be a good citizen for your institution. So you should get ready for that. The second point I like to stress that because I mean, both Gökçe particularly refer that in our lives, there could be so many failures, okay? Often Peter mentioned that on our CVs, we don't write our failures, but we write all good things. But I think after each failures, we should have a kind of self-assessment. And based on that, we may try to develop certain skills. And the developing skills so we have weaknesses and the strengths, but the field is developing. For instance, now there are AI and the other different technologies. So we should be ready to open ourselves to the new technologies. When I say technologies, we should develop our skills in the field. That's the other important thing is that. Thirdly, in fact, developing the professional network is very important. I mean, we use this concept of network even when we talk about the conferences. For instance, we stress that one function of the conference are networking, but really knowing the others, colleagues, they are these links are very important, both for we can have the new job opportunities, but also we can do some teamworks with them, we can collaborate with them. So professional network development is very important. So this should be on our agenda. The fourth thing, already it's mentioned that for each task or for each position, we should tailor our applications. Again, I already mentioned that, for instance, what we see in the case of Gökçe's application, there were certain feedbacks came. It was a failure, but feedbacks given, then we should tailor the things again. This also how to tailor your CV for the different positions at different research projects. This is also very important. I will link this with the first concept I introduced, understanding the landscape, okay? Understanding the particular positions, and based on that positions, we can tailor our applications. Finally, also, I like to stress some of the points regarding how the institutions look at the whole process. Of course, for the institutions, they like to get the best person to that position. Okay, so in that sense, for instance, they try to advertise the position in different locations. In this context, actually, now we have to diversify places to find the new opportunities while we are looking for job. So institutions also give importance to how they will advertise their positions. Also, again, for the institutions, defining clearly that those positions are important. So defining the institutional needs. While you are applying really application, actually those calls, there are certain sentences, whether you can fit those positions or not, you should be careful about that, because from the institutional perspectives, defining the institutional needs, also defining that particular position is important. The other issue I like to mention that I will mention some practical issues. Again, I will come to this practical issue of the CV. As far as I was representing the institutions in the hiring processes, first, the CVs are very important. Sometimes even the CVs should be easily readable. I mean, easily understandable. Okay, you shouldn't make the story very complicated. But for instance, again, as far as a kind of strategy for the young scholars, sometimes the practical mistakes we can make. Today, just I was talking to a colleague here. For instance, book reviews. Okay, time to time as the young scholars, you received so many kind of demand. Maybe you should review the books. If I get a kind of CV from a young scholar, for instance, there are tens of or so many book reviews, but no publication, no journal article. So this is a kind of minus for the person. A kind of balanced, nuanced CV is important in terms of its content too. This was a kind of specific example I want to give. Again, the last word I like to make, but I will repeat myself. Don't forget actually these specific requirements coming for the specific job positions, because if you are new in the field, of course, time to time you may feel that, oh, you have to find a position. Okay, so kind of you are open to different options, but then really you have to be very careful understanding that environment in that particular context. What is our time? Maybe just now we can move to the question and the answer session, because we pointed out to certain issues. Ceren, how we will manage that? I don't know. You can, of course, you can write from the chat. Maybe in that context, Ceren will help us, or I don't know whether the participants, they are able to ask their questions. If they are able, then they can ask questions. Yeah, I like to open the floor for the Q&A session.
Exactly. Participants can either write down their questions here in the chat box, or better to raise your hands. Hagar, I can see you, but wait, I will stop recording, by the way, for the Q&A session.